Professor Maxwell, you've written a number of books on early childhood. How many books have you written on the subject?
There are about five that, but early childhood is the featured subject, but they don't necessarily stay within the realm of early childhood only. They veer outside that a bit. But basically, I can say five.
When you say that they veer outside of that a bit, what do you mean?
For example, the first book is called Thinking, The Expanding Frontier, 1983. The real focus was on the falling IQ of children. But we go afield of that issue to discuss the brain's methods of learning and so on. So it goes a little bit wider than focusing upon the child, but the central focus is the child. With that is four more books focusing on the child.
So where did you move over the course of four books? You went from starting with a broad topic of thinking. Did you become more focused on on children as you went
First,
along? Well, no,
yes.
you have to wait. You have to wait till I stop. Just try to get that habit.
Okay.
Did you become more focused on children as you went through writing more books?
Yes. This next book after the Thinking book, which was a very academic, scholarly book of 25 different writers, the next book was called Parenting, Super Parenting. This was a book about how parents discover and train their children's mental abilities. So that was the next book. The next book was done in Albania. It's called The First Hero, in which I look at how children become heroic. And the fourth book was Genius Baby, in which I fictionalize the progress of how a baby by age 24 months manifests its genius.
Let's go back to the second book on parenting.
Yes,
What were some of the lessons from that book for our audience?
the important lessons from that book was that the child requires 200% parental care early on in life. And I drew that model from Fiji, where when a baby is born, the mother and two other women move into the family home, being sure that the child is always in touch with the mother figure. So the important lesson from that book is give the child constant loving care. The child requires it in order to develop. In order for the child not to fear that he's entered a world of anger or a world of war and a world of unpleasant psychology. The child must learn very, very early that it is born into a loving, kindly world.
In American culture, there's a great emphasis on independence. And so parents are often encouraged to leave the children alone, leave them by themselves, even sometimes when they're crying in the crib. Let them get used to it. Let them learn that life is tough. Is that a good method for child rearing?
That was the message of Dr. Spock, who wrote the number one bestseller in parenting in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Dr. Spock so advocated leave the child alone, let the child cry. He'll get over it. And Dr. Spock himself was later repudiated by his own children. All the research since Spock has shown that Spock was 100% wrong.
What else can parents do to encourage the proper development of their children?
Well, number one is make sure the child is comfortable, temperature wise, and so on. There are thousands of things that parents can do. And so in our book, we mentioned the most important. Just one quick example of that was we drew a lesson from Korea, where when the baby begins to become a toddler, Koreans put little kneecaps on the baby. So when the baby falls on his knees, he doesn't scar his knees. I don't know of any other culture in the world that is so careful about the baby's toddling stage. But there are hundreds of things they can do. Uh, the most important of which is change the diaper if the baby's in diapers immediately, so the baby doesn't sit in his own acid too long.
As the child gets a little older, needless to say, the parents' parenting has to change. What's the next phase in development where parents need to make a shift in to follow the baby's development?
Maria Montessori made the point that the baby sends signals to the parents. Parents, I'm ready for this, I'm ready for that. The baby sends signals. Mommy, I'm ready to play hide and seek. Daddy, I'm ready to play some games with you. You can count my toes and sing as you go, if things like that. The baby will send signals to the parents. I'm ready to watch animals. Please let me go watch some animals for a while. The baby sends signals, and the parents, if they're observant, will follow the baby's signals in these early stages. But that's not sufficient. The parents have to be more than observant of the baby. They've got to become, in effect, child development specialists.
How do parents become child development specialists in terms of language? When should they first pay attention to the baby's language or provide language to the baby?
The parents should begin talking with the baby immediately upon birth. The baby, in fact, the baby inside the womb is listening to the parent's language. So Burton White at Harvard answered that by simply saying, in the future, not today, but in the more sensible future, both parents will stay home with the baby for the baby's first 3 years of life. And in those days at home with the baby, they'll do all kinds of learning exercises, poetry, music, stories, all kinds of things that the parents will study with the baby, where the baby will develop not only his language abilities, but his reasoning abilities and so on.
How can parents encourage confidence and trust in the baby, in their interaction with the world, not just with them, but beyond them and the world?
The baby has 4 or 5 basic fears. The first fear, of course, is losing mother, the fear of noise, the fear of strangers, the fear of strange objects, and so on. So the parents can protect the infant from all of its fears by being sure that the environment is very safe and so on. For example, uh, dogs can be in the environment, but they have to be friendly dogs. Cats are not very friendly to babies usually, but if the cat is friendly to a baby, that's healthy for babies. But the parents have to watch very carefully what's healthy for the baby, what brings on the baby's anxiety. There's a myth in several cultures, for example, babies should never cry. If babies are crying, it means something is wrong in the environment. Do something quickly so that the baby is not in a state of anxiety.
And is that also that actually I'm gonna call it right here. We're 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 starting to do the whole thing. It will be more organized. I'll be more organized with my question next time. But
Good.
let me just stop the recording
Okay.
and let me see what that looks like. I and then we'll stay on. I'll stop the recording.